in this tutorial series, we've learned a lot about creating some custom components. Now we're going to integrate the rest of the custom components that we've designed, and that main component is this payment selector. So this is a brand new custom selector. We even used a mask to add a little bit of fading out on the edges as we scroll on either the front or the back end to give the user some indication that there is more content available off the screen. Okay, with that, we want to integrate that into our application. So this is going to be this little widget, which is then going to be the final piece of the puzzle of calculating the loan based on the loan amount, the down payments, the term and APR, and then our estimated payment down below. Okay, so that is the last piece of the puzzle. We've got a little graphic here. We've already included that in the repository, so I've already got that in the asset catalog. Then we have to calculate and do some math. All right, so that's our starting point, and this was all in a separate project. So if you're kind of following along, I'll have a link to that separate project. Let's see, we've got a few different things here. So you'll have the custom slider is a separate project, and then we've got the payment selector as a separate project, and then the whole calculator as one thing. So that's kind of how we're working right now. So let's dive into what's left. So I sort of outlined where we were going. We've done the navigation, the toolbar, the background color. We've done the custom slider. We've done the beginnings of the loan card. We still have to finish that out now with our final control, which is the slide control. And then we've got to do the estimated payment, which is that view along the bottom, and then the actual calculations and any kind of data model, which we sort of covered already with this payment term. That's the building blocks of our data model. I'm not sure if there's going to be anything to refactor, so we'll sort of play it by ear, depending on how much time I have. So I basically want to grab all of this code and bring it on over. We're going to create a new folder up at the top level. New folder. And we're just going to call this PaymentSelector. And we're going to bring in these files. Let's see if I can grab them. So payment cell. I extracted this from our previous video. So if you want to learn how we built this component, you can watch that video. We need the payment term, the selector, and the cell. We're just going to drag those over and drop them right into that folder. And that's going to be our starting point. Okay. So we're done with that project, and we're going to focus now on the integration of everything all together. Let's bring up our UI so we can see what we're making and get this aligned. And so this should all be working. So payment term is probably more top level, so I'll pull that out. The cell and the selector are really what make up this, though we do need some kind of data model. And however you choose to sort of break that out, that's ultimately what's going to go on here. But we're going to be using payment term elsewhere. Okay, so let's dive into, let's open up. Why is that not working? Oh, I don't have a preview. All right, so if we make this, this will be, let's grab, where did I put that? Of course, I need the other project. Let's go ahead and grab that. Okay. With that information, we'll just start with this. You can grab it from the other project. I should have just copy and pasted it while it was open. But that's going to be our starting point. So we're going to have some payment terms, and I think I need to do this so it doesn't complain. So this is just so that we can preview what this is going to look like. Again, for something like this, we're going to want some padding just so that it's inset and we can see the control. So that is the stuff integrated. It's nice to have previews on different UI components so that you can test them in isolation and sort of see the building blocks and then the big picture. So we've got our custom slider right here that was wrapping UI kit. I guess I'm imagining things. Okay, I'm not going to re-implement each of these previews because they're in the other projects and they just work there. So let's integrate this component into our main app, which is the payment calculator, which it is missing from the loan calculator pad. So if you go back to my previous video, we worked on creating this top bar. And now we're going to jump to that implementation and go ahead and we've got our loan term selector, which is just a title. So we'll jump to definition here. And this is where we have a title. We're going to have a space. And down in here, this is our VStack. So here we are going to create a payment selector. And we're going to pass in the selected index, kind of like what we just did, and then the payment terms. For simplicity's sake, let's go ahead and grab those. I might just, whoops, I didn't want to do that. To just get something working, I'm going to paste that in. We need to create a selected index. So let's go up top. Boom. Amazing. I don't know if there's anything left to do. We just got to connect some of these dots. Okay, so let's build the next card. What did I have on my list? It's really the estimated payment. Like we got this hooked up. It's connected. Now we just have to do the estimated payment. So let's go ahead. We'll add a new file. Oh, no, let's just do it in file first. I'm just going to group it up into a PMT calculator. And then let me grab a comment so we have a starting point. So we're going to calculate And we'll make this a static function. Pass in loan amount. And before we do anything else, let's get that comment so that we have a starting point. So this was in my README. So you can get access to that at the top level. That should be in Payment Calculator. This is what we're looking at right here. This is the README. So I have that function right here. So we're going to need to pass in the APR. We're going to have to pass in the months. And I'm currently just going to do a double for all of these things. And we're going to return a double. So let's return 0 as a starting point. And then let's start typing out this calculation. So we're going to calculate R. R is this value is the periodic interest rate. So it's the APR divided by the number of interest periods in the year. And since we're going to do monthly for this calculation, that's just going to be dividing by 12. If you wanted to do daily, it would be dividing by 365. So in this case, we're going to take the APR and just divide that by 12. Since it's a double, we don't have to worry about rounding, so that should just be a double result, and that's going to be our R value. And then we're just going to build this up component by component. So we're going to say let result equal, and then let's return result at the very end. Okay, so result is going to equal, in this case, it's going to be PV times R. PV is our present value. So it's going to be our starting loan amount. So let's say that's our loan amount multiplied by the R, which we just calculated. And I guess if we want it to be a little bit more matchy, let's go with whatever this is. So we'll do a R as a capital R, just so it's a little bit more clear. And this value is going to be divided by the quantity 1 minus another quantity 1 plus R, capital R. And then this is raised to a power. So we're going to use the power function here. So it's going to be POW for this result raised to the negative, and then N in this case should be the number of months. Okay, and that should calculate a value that'll at least give us a number. Hopefully it's the right value. So now we have a calculation function that we can just invoke. This is something you could unit test and verify that it's doing the right math. I haven't triple checked, there's different equations for this. So it depends on how granular you want this to work. I think this should work and match at least what the UX had. Their number, I think, was rounded up or something like that. Since it wasn't showing the pennies. Okay, so that is the math function. Let's extract that to its own file. And I'll cut and paste, and then we'll say import foundation. So if you need a second to type that out, go ahead and type that out. Just make sure we're using the power function with this as the result, and then it's 1 minus that value. Order of operations, this will get together, so we don't necessarily need parentheses for that, but we do need parentheses for this ending, otherwise this subtraction will not work. Okay, so back to the calculator. We want to drive this number as we're interacting with the app. So how do we want to express that? I'm going to make a function in here that's going to calculate. This is something you could move to a view model, but we need to calculate the PMT given the different inputs, and we're going to put that in our estimated payment down at the bottom. So that's where we're actually going to see these values. So we're going to need an estimated payment down at the bottom. So we've got our loan slider down here, loan calculator. So let's go ahead and create var estimated payments. This is going to be some view. And let's just return text, and then we can do some kind of calculation in here. To do that, I'm going to probably have a helper function, calculate PMT, that's going to grab all of the values. So let's create that function. And then let's return 0 to start. We're going to go up top so that we can start to see this. And we got the loan calculator up top. Let's go ahead and put in the estimated payment down below. So we now should see the number appear down here. We can format that in a second, but let's see if we can get that calculation working. And let's just make it big for fun. Just so it's a little bit more visible, so that we can see it. And we could also do the foreground style dots colors dot blue. Our blue is actually a different blue, so we do need to go back to our payment selector and find where we did color dot blue or dot blue. It's on the cell itself. Okay, so this we need to change to colors.blue, and we're going to do the same down here, colors.blue. That'll make our colors match. And let's jump back into our calculator. Okay, so we have a starting point. Let's calculate PMT. Now, in order to do this calculation, we have to get the index of the payment. And there's some edge cases that we don't want to have invalid things. So if like nothing's selected in this interface, we're not going to know what period to use. So we'll just return 0 as like a default. So let's guard our selected index and just make sure that it's not equal to, it's greater than or equal to 0. Let's see. And then if it's less than payment terms.count, make sure we're not going out of bounds. Otherwise, we're just going to return 0. And then what else do we want to do? Let the selected term equal the payment terms, and we're going to index into the selected index. So we're just trying to protect the state a little bit so that we're not doing something risky. And then we're going to calculate the amount. Now, I don't ever want this to be negative, so I'm just going to have a protection here for that. And we'll do the max of 0 or the loan amount minus the down payment. So here's where I'm incorporating these two to figure out what the amount of the loan is going to be. And then we'll get the PMT is equal to our PMT calculator, and we'll use that new calculate method. We'll pass in the amount. We'll pass in the selected term.apr, and then we'll pass in the selected term.months. Okay, and it's going to complain because I think we used a double for months for that calculation, just to keep the math nice and easy to read. So we're just going to have to convert months into a double. The PMT should be our final value, and that's going to be our monthly payment. And there we go. Cool. So it's working, and selecting this is changing it. Changing this changes it. Changing this changes it. So now it's like fully reactive. It's just a matter of styling this bottom card so that it's going to look good. So let's work on that. We need to pull in that image. We need to stylize the text. Let's stylize the text. To do that, we are going to do the format again, and we're going to do a currency. We're going to pass in the currency code. And that's going to make it look nice and pretty. And remember, we wanted to limit the precision, and we're going to get rid of the fractional digits and cut them off. They are choosing in this example to round up, which is fine. This is just a rough payment. We don't want users to know the exact, because this is not a financial app. This is just estimations, and it's trying to keep it nice and clean. So when you're playing with big numbers, you really don't care about those decimals, because it's like, okay, doesn't really matter. The term duration and the APR is going to make those big decisions. You don't care about the little details. You just want a rough ballpark with this style of application. Okay, so we formatted our number. We need to make this bigger, though. It's not chunky enough. It's not big enough. So let's actually try and match that style and get this looking a lot nicer. You'll notice that there's that /month afterwards, so we're going to need to just make this bigger. So we'll go even bigger with large title. And we are going to make this chunky. Instead of bold, we're going to do the font weight of black. This is like the chunkiest of the chunky you can get. And then we need a H stack. We'll sort of build this inside out, I think. H stack that are going to be baseline aligned. So let's do alignment. And then we'll do first text baseline. And we're going to have another chunk of text that's going to be our month attribute. So it's going to be /MO. And then this needs to be that blue color. So let's pull this down with that's the option command left square bracket. And it needs to be a little bit chunkier. So we're going to go with .font and then just headline. That's going to make this match a little bit nicer. It looks like it's it might be opaque. So it might, maybe we do want, like if we were really trying to match this, it looks like there's a little opacity on this. And let's copy this. Whoops. There's definitely something there. Okay. Something like that is going to give us a little effect. It might be 0.7. I could be seeing things. So it just didn't feel like it was full color. That's kind of why I pulled it out. But that's up to you how you want to do this. So we've just built that little component. The next thing is stylizing the thing around it. So we need to put this in a vertical stack. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to move this all the way, cannot see, down here. It doesn't re-indent, so let's just delete it and put it back to re-indent. That was a failed attempt of making this easier to do. And we need to have our estimated payment title. So that's going to be a text, estimated payment. And then for this font size, I'm just playing around with different titles. I would say title 2 or title 3 is kind of fitting with what they have here. And then in terms of our style foreground style is going to be that secondary. It's a little too much for me, actually. Black is too much, but secondary doesn't feel right. It could just be because this is scaled. Let's just see what it looks like before we commit to something. I mean, this feels more like a 0.7 here. So if I was going to do this, I'd do a title. Secondary title. And I would do colors.secondary title. So if we go back in here, we can just okay, and then I just want to double check and see if this still works. Oh, these colors do not look good in dark mode. But that is the design. I don't have an alternate color. We're just trying to make it, yeah. I don't know if they look good in this mode. I don't love those colors, but that's the design we're trying to match. So that's the goal. Okay, so we've got a foreground style. We're going with this secondary title, which I'm using. If we jump back, if I can do this, let's open this up as, that didn't work. If I click here, did not open down. I was trying to open down. Let's see if I do that one more time. So plus is there. If I hold the Alt key, you can see this button. I don't want the preview on this one. I just wanted to get to colors. So here we can see the colors. And this is how you can have multiple things on the screen at the same time so that you can look at two different things. I'm just doing this so you can see the color. But what I did here is I went with the primary and then opacity on it rather than just locking it into black. If we had done black, let's see what would happen on a dark appearance. So by not using black here and by using this primary, what we get is the benefit that this doesn't disappear. And so it's a little bit less work if you want to support multiple dark and light modes. Okay, I'm going to close that since we got to sort of look at that. Up next, we've got to get this icon down here. We're sort of building this inside out. So that means we need to have a horizontal stack to show the icon and then play around with some of the padding. So I'm just going to do that, click down here and do that. So that's going to allow us to get this. And then we need to have an image. And then we have a file in the asset catalog that we copied in. This is the card hero. So we're going to jump back down to where we were and type in card hero. And I think I put this in the wrong spot. Let's just fix that. To fix this indentation, I'm going to take away one more of these braces and then close it. And we don't want to be editing the loan slider. We want to be editing estimated payments. So in here, we'll add our H stack that I was talking about. And then we will go ahead and add our image. Excellent. We need to make this resizable. And we need to do the aspect ratio fit so that it doesn't stretch and skew. And then we need to control its size somehow. I think I'm going to do frame width 100. That looks a lot better. We're going to have a spacer of some sort here to push outwards. I think we then want to apply our background to the H stack. So let's do a background. And we previously designed a background. So I should be able to do the box background so that we can reuse that same thing. We're going to need a spacer in between these two elements, but that's already looking a lot better. We probably want padding or another spacer on the edge to prevent this from going over. And so this is going to sort of make it sort of have equal distance padding on either side of the image, which I think looks pretty good. If we want to have a little extra padding on the outside, this is an H stack, so we could do padding here and just horizontal. Okay, and now what we have is our estimated payment. We've got a VStack where we haven't really customized the spacing. So let's go ahead here and adjust the spacing to do the, this was the intra padding. Did I call that something in here? Let's move all of these to the top. Row padding is what I called it. Okay, so that row padding is going to give us a little bit more separation. And that is the styling. Did we finish? Are we done? I think so. So this was a lot. But we should be able to run this on the simulator now. We can run this on your iPhone. If I pull out my iPhone, if it likes me, or I can get this on the simulator. Let's see what my iPhone is doing. If I plug it into USB, let's see if that helps speed up this validation step. Okay, it is now running, but I'm also going to pull this up on the simulator. So I'll be able to test on a physical device. It's always nice to test on a real device. And I'm in dark mode. Ooh, okay. So that like highlights some of the issue. I guess I wasn't paying attention to that graphic yet because we just got it in there, but that's why you want the graphic to not have any white in it. So we'll have to edit that image if we really want to support dark mode. Right now, we don't care. Mostly I wanted to see how usable it was. It feels pretty good. Components feel pretty good. The background doesn't really work in the way it's popping out, but that's mainly an issue of we're using the wrong background color, I think. It's not really a dark mode design, so I'm not going to test it on a dark mode right now. That's something that you can work on fixing for later. And then let's pull open the iPhone 16 Pro simulator. Go ahead and run this and see what we get. We have a simulator. So I'm looking at this. I'm just trying to see if there's anything we missed. The calculation appears to be correct. It's just off because they're rounding here. But I'm not going to guarantee this calculation. So double check it in Excel. We don't have any negative numbers. Oh, so this jitter really bothers me. So we can fix that. So let's find our labels where we've got text calculations. So this one right here, we want to switch this to a digit monospaced. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a monospaced digit on the estimated payment. So now if we refresh this, you see how this doesn't jitter? No jitter on the bottom one. It's staying in place, but the top one's jittering. And this one is jittering right here. So these two need to be fixed. So we need to go to our loan slider and our down payment sliders. And for the loan amounts, we're going to do a monospaced digit. And then for the down payment amount, we're going to do a monospaced digit. So now when we drag this slider, the numbers are exactly the same width. They're not percentage-based width. Proportional width. And so then this is also not jittering. So that looks way, 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 way better. All right. So I think that's pretty much it. The last thing to do, is there any other cleanup? Let's look at my list. All right. So we've got the estimated payment. We've got the calculations. We've done a little bit with the data model. The one thing that, and I'm going to leave this as a reader exercise, is extract a view model. Okay, so we've done all of these different things. Depending on how you want to extract this, you've got like the starting point of this whole UI, but there's always more we can do for refactoring, like pulling this out so that it's actually passed into the payment calculator so that you can configure that. Some of these things in the state you might want to move into a view model object that is then being passed in, that requires that we refactor and rejigger some things. I may do a video on that, but I'm out of time today. So maybe I do that, maybe I don't. And then the other thing is like reusable components, if it makes sense, like these slider things. Sometimes it's not worth it because it's extra work. Loan term selector. Do we need this anymore? So like the only thing I would do is any kind of cleanup. If there's messages that when we're using it in the previews, value is printing out. So we could look for print statements that need to be cleaned up if you're going to do a commit. So like we don't need this line anymore. You can have it yourself. The back press doesn't really hurt anyone to have that here. But now when we scroll, we don't see stuff down here, so we can clear that output. And it looks a lot cleaner. Let's make sure our loan amount is more than our down payment. We'll get calculations. We can move this all around. So I think we're done. If you have any questions, comment down below. If you like seeing this type of thing Leave a comment if there's something you want to see me build. This was a lot of work to put together. There's a lot going into anytime you do custom components or custom navigation bar stuff. A lot of setup for stylizing these sliders, but I really like how they turned out. I like that we have a reusable component that you can use for a custom slider in SwiftUI. We learned how to do image rendering. So we already fixed this issue. I can get rid of that comment. This was for compositing an image to create that thumbnail. So that's super fun. And then we've got the payment cell and the payment selector and all of that, which included adding this little masking effect using this stuff. So that was super cool. Just a lot of polish on making this feel good and responsive. And then testing it on the device, it feels pretty good. I mean, the biggest issue I have is I'm in dark mode. So if I switch back to light mode, this should look pretty nice and sort of matches what we'd expect. So seeing it run on a real device is always a win. And just making sure that widgets and controls and things that you're interacting with are responsive is super important. Yeah, it's a cool design. It's a cool app idea. Maybe you want to submit something like this on the App Store. Figure out the actual calculations that would be useful. There's way more that goes into calculating like monthly payment. There could be taxes and other things. So you could extend this application using that, and you could extend it by refactoring the data model. Right now we have MVP. I would still do more cleanup if I was going to do a pull request to merge this in with another bigger app. But this is a good starting point for learning how to think about the UI, breaking it down into small components, building them up, making some reusable views that we can leverage for that background shadow that we have in here, and then just learning how to create custom views from scratch, as well as wrapping up UIKit views when SwiftUI doesn't have the functionalities that you need. Thanks so much for watching. You can sort of going further. Somehow lost my, we'll bring my notes up. If you want to go further, I would definitely check out other designs that you can implement. I think I'm going to implement some other designs from Sarah, or just looking for another designer. So if we look at some of her other designs, I think we've got, so this is the payment calculator. There's a cocktail social profile, which looks kind of interesting. It does require some images. There's a login screen that you could take a look at. If you find something on Dribbble, let me know. I think we've got a good starting point for this application. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another tutorial. Have a good one.